아, 오늘 날씨 진짜 좋네요. 이런 날은 뭔가 좀 깊이 파고들고 싶은 그런 기분 안 드세요?
맞아요. 딱 그런 날씨네요. 저희도 그래서 오늘 좀 흥미로운 주제를 가져왔습니다. 비트코인 서울 2025 컨퍼런스 기억나시죠?
아, 그럼요. 근데 전 아쉽게 못 갔거든요. 그래서 오늘 이야기가 더 기대돼요. 그 컨퍼런스 세션 중에 한국 비트코인 커뮤니티의 미래, 이거 되게 관심 갔었거든요.
네네, 바로 그 세션입니다. 혹시 현장에 못 가셨거나 혹은 그날의 열기를 다시 한번 느끼고 싶으신 분들을 위해 준비했습니다.
저희가 오늘 볼 자료가 바로 그 패널 토론 발췌록이죠. 고덕윤님, 스펙터님, 아토믹님 참여하신.
맞습니다. 그래서 혹시 시간이 되신다면 이 발췌록을 먼저 한번 읽어보시면 저희 대화가 훨씬 더 입체적으로 느껴지실 거예요.
네, 좋은 팁이네요. 자, 그럼 이제 한번 들어가 볼까요? 한국 비트코인 커뮤니티, 지금 모습이 어떤지, 또 어떤 특징이 있는지, 앞으로는 어디로 갈지 같이 한번 파헤쳐보죠.
우선 제일 궁금한 거, 이분들 어디서 활동하실까요? 자료 보니까 주로 트위터, 그리고 아토믹 님이 운영하시는 그 지분전쟁, 디스코드 채널,
아, 거기 유명하죠.
네, 그리고 아토믹 비트코인, BSL이라고 하죠. 그 관련 활동 공간들, 여기서 주로 활동하신다고 해요.
생각보다 온라인 중심이네요. 그럼 규모는요? 어느 정도나 될까요?
아토믹님 추정으로는 실제 개인 지갑 쓰는, 그러니까 진짜 비트코이너라고 할 만한 분들은 한 5천 명 그 정도라고 하시던데요.
5천 명. 이게 많은 건지 적은 건지는 뭐 기준에 따라 다르겠지만 핵심 활동 인원으로 보면 적은 숫자는 아니죠.
그렇죠. 중요한 건 만약에 당송이 이 커뮤니티에 좀 참여해 보고 싶다. 이러면 어떻게 해야 할까요?
되거나 먼저 말을 걸어야 한다는 거죠.
먼저 손을 내밀어야 하는군요. 듣고 보니까 이 한국 커뮤니티만의 좀 독특한 색깔이 궁금해져요. 자료에서 딱 눈에 띄는 게 두 가지였는데 하나는 알트코인에 대한 그 강한 비판적 시각,
네, 맞아요.
그리고 또 하나는 소위 톡식함, 약간 거칠다는 그런 이야기였어요. 왜 이렇게 알트코인에 대해서는 날선 반응을 보이는 걸까요?
아, 그게요, 좀 배경이 있더라고요. 과거에 한국 시장이 알트코인들한테 약간 엑시트 창구 역할을 많이 했대요. 그러니까 상장시켜서 막 가격 띄운 다음에 확 팔고 나가는 거죠.
아, 그런 아픈 기억이?
네. 그래서 많은 비트코이너들이 그런 걸 직접 겪거나 옆에서 보면서 비트코인으로 넘어온 경우가 많다 보니까 다른 사람들이 또 그런 피해를 입을까 봐 그걸 막으려는 그런 마음이 강한 거죠. 일종의 방어 기제랄까요?
아, 이해가 되네요. 본인들이 겪었던 피해 혹은 주변에서 본 피해가 있으니 더 그럴 수 있겠어요? 아토믹 비트코인, BSL이 비트코인 올리 정책을 딱 고수하는 것도 이런 맥락이겠군요.
그렇죠. 비트코인 그 자체를 알리는 데 집중하겠다. 이런 순수성을 지키려는 목적도 있고요. 그리고 그 톡식함 얘기도 재밌어요. 스펙터님 분석이 인상 깊었는데
네, 어떤 내용이었죠?
이게 비트코인에 대한 확신이 너무 강하다 보니까 때로는 이게 정답이야 하고 좀 알려주고 싶은 마음이 앞서는 거죠.
아, 약간 선인데.
네. 근데 거기에 막 반발이 오거나 하면 반응이 좀 과격해질 수도 있다. 이런 분석이었어요.
확신이 너무 강하네요. 들어갈 수도 있겠네요. 근데 또 아토믹님은 다른 얘기도 했잖아요. 겉으로는 좀 강해 보여도 진짜 진지하게 배우려는 사람한테는 또 엄청 친절하다고요. 약간 강강약약 스타일.
아, 맞아요. 그 부분 저도 인상 깊었어요. 그러니까 근거 없이 막 비난하거나 이러면 좀 단호하게 대처하는데 진정성 있게 다가오면 또 엄청 열려 있다는 거죠.
이런 특징들 다른 나라랑 비교하면 어떨까요? 스펙터님이 호주 시드니 경험을 예리해 주셨는데
네. 거기는 모임이 되게 정기적이고 예측 가능하게 열린대요. 그래서 누구나 좀 쉽게 참여할 수 있는 그런 분위기라고 하더라고요.
가장 큰 차이는 역시 그 알트코인 얘기할 때 태도였던 것 같아요. 그렇죠? 해외는 너는 그거 투자하는구나. 약간 이렇게 인정하고 넘어가는 분위기인데.
네, 맞아요. 너는 그렇구나. 이런 식이죠.
근데 한국은 좀 더 직접적으로 그거 위험하다. 조심해야 한다. 이런 목소리가 나올 수 있다는 거. 이게 뭐 개인 선택 존중이냐 아니면 적극적으로 개입해서 알려줘야 하느냐 이 차이일 수도 있겠네요.
그렇죠. 문화적인 차이도 분명히 있을 거고요. 근데 이런 커뮤니티 안에서도 당연히 의견 충돌이 있잖아요. 예를 들면 그 오디널스.
아, 네네. 비트코인 블록체인에 직접 데이터 새기는 거.
네, 그거랑 뭐 BRC라던가 OPR 턴 이런 새로운 기술 이슈들 나오면 막 논쟁이 붙잖아요.
이럴 땐 어떤 태도를 가져야 할까요?
여기서 스펙터님 조언이 되게 현실적이었어요. 막 감정적으로 서로 비방하고 그러지 말고
네, 인신공격 같은 거요.
그 주장이 진짜 타당하면 결국에는 사람들이 알아줄 거다 이런 믿음을 가지라는 거죠. 괜히 편 가르고 싸우기보다는 그냥 자기 길 묵묵히 가라.
맞는 말이네요. 자, 그럼 이제 미래를 위한 움직임들은 뭐가 있을까요? 아토믹 비트코인 BSL 같은 경우는 정말 여러 가지 활동을 하더라고요. 비영리 단체로서.
네, 구체적으로 어떤 것들이 있었죠?
뭐 온라인 교육도 하고 오프라인 스터디도 열고 심지어 탈중앙화 채굴풀 운영하는 것도 돕고 해외 좋은 자료 있으면 번역해서 출판도 하고요. 활동 자금 지원까지 진짜 다양해요.
와, 정말 적극적이네요. 스펙터님은 또 다른 관점을 강조하셨죠? 비트코인을 실제로 사용하는 경험.
아, 맞아요. 그게 중요하다고 라이트닝 네트워크 같은 걸로 진짜 소액이라도 결제를 자꾸 해보는 경험. 이걸 공유해야 된다는 거예요.
네. 그래야 이게 단순 투기 대상이 아니라 진짜 화폐로 쓰일 수 있구나. 이런 인식이 퍼진다는 거죠.
그렇죠. 일리 있는 지적이요.
그리고 패널 토론 사회에 보셨던 고덕윤님 마무리 발언도 기억에 남아요. 주변 사람 한 명 한 명 붙잡고 설득하려고 애쓰기보다는
네, 그게 쉽지 않죠.
그렇죠. 차라리 비트코인을 처음 접하는 사람들이 그냥 자연스럽게 이거 괜찮네 하고 느낄 수 있는 그런 환경을 만드는 데 같이 힘을 보태자 이런 제안이었죠.
아, 그것도 좋은 접근법이네요.
오늘 이렇게 쭉 얘기를 나눠보니까 와, 한국 비트코인 커뮤니티 진짜 열정이 대단하구나. 근데 또 그만큼 깊은 고민도 있구나 하는 게 느껴졌어요. 그 확고한 신념에서 나오는 에너지가 정말 강렬하네요.
저도요. 그 강한 신념을 지키면서도 어떻게 좀 외부랑 잘 소통하고 또 새로운 사람들을 잘 맞이할 수 있을까? 이 균형점을 찾으려는 그런 노력이 되게 인상 깊었습니다. 건강한 긴장감이랄까요?
이 이야기를 들으신 당신은 어떻게 생각하시나요? 이렇게 강한 신념을 가진 커뮤니티가 어떻게 하면 외부의 오해를 좀 줄이고 더 많은 사람들과 효과적으로 연결될 수 있을까요? 한번 고민해 볼 만한 지점인 것 같습니다. 저희는 다음에 더 흥미로운 분석으로 돌아오겠습니다.
Welcome back, everyone, to another special deep dive.
Yeah, good to be here.
Today, we're doing something pretty cool. We're basically taking you back in time to Bitcoin Seoul 2025.
Exactly. For anyone who, couldn't make it to the conference, or maybe you were there and just want a really solid recap.
This is definitely for you. We want to bring those key moments right to you.
And our focus today is unpacking this really fascinating panel discussion. It was called The Future of the Korean Bitcoin Community. We've gone through it, pulled out the core insights. It had some really key voices, people who've genuinely been shaping the Bitcoin scene in Korea.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives you that front row seat perspective.
It really does.
And the lineup was, well, pretty impressive.
Yeah.
We're drawing directly from the moderator, Cody Okion, from NonSlab,
Right.
and two release central figures, Spectre and Atomic.
These aren't just commentators. They're like community architects,
Definitely. Their conversation really guides this whole thing. So maybe we should start by getting to know them a bit better. These people building Korea's Bitcoin future.
Yeah, let's do that. So Atomic was a big presence on the panel. They operate something called Jibun Jeonjang.
Which translates to stake war, right?
Exactly, stake war. And it's one of the biggest Bitcoin communities in Korea. Its story is pretty interesting, too.
How so?
Well, it started out simply enough, just a Kakao Talk room.
Yeah.
But they got worried about, potential censorship.
Okay, makes sense.
So they made a move over to Discord. And now it's got around 1,100 members. Pretty dedicated group.
Wow, okay. And I heard there's something unique about joining.
Yeah, this is really distinctive. To get into Jibun Jeonjang, you actually have to verify a personal wallet.
Really? So it's not just click and join.
Nope. It's a real commitment. Shows you're serious, right from the get-go, not just kind of window shopping.
That's quite a filter.
Okay,
And then there's Spectre, the Bitcoin nomad.
that's the one. Korea's first Bitcoin nomad, as people often say.
What's their story?
Well, Spectre is known for traveling pretty much everywhere, connecting with Bitcoiners all over the globe, different cultures, different scenes.
I heard about a recent trip. Texas?
Yeah, they mentioned attending a developer-only conference in Austin. Got some guidance from a mentor figure named Calvin for that trip.
Interesting. It kind of highlights how global Bitcoin is, even when we're focusing on just one region like Korea, these personal journeys.
Absolutely. It's all interconnected, isn't it? Even these individual, almost like pilgrimages, they feed back into the local scene.
Okay, so we've got these two figures, Atomic and Spectre, clearly deep in the weeds, shaping things in their own ways.
Right.
But how does that fit into the bigger picture, like the overall Korean Bitcoin community? If someone's new, how do they even find their way in? And how big are we talking here?
Good questions. For newcomers, the entry points are actually quite varied. You could say start writing articles, contribute that way, or check out some of the Korean Bitcoin YouTubers' names like NetDolba or Japan Bitcoin came up. Good for getting the basics.
Right, sort of educational content.
Exactly. And Atomic, for instance, is apparently very active on Twitter. So just finding their ID there is a direct line. And
So social media is a key channel.
for sure. And another big one is getting involved with Atomic Bitcoin or BSL initiatives. They mentioned something called the T-Coin social layer.
T-Coin social layer. What's that?
It sounded like this open, community-driven platform. The idea is to, foster deeper connections, share knowledge among Bitcoiners, less formal, more grassroots.
That sounds great. So it's not just about absorbing info, it's about participating.
Precisely. And the vibe seems to be quite welcoming, like they actively try to guide people who are genuinely interested in learning or, investing carefully.
That's good to hear. What about the size, though? Any numbers?
Yeah, Atomic gave their personal estimate during the panel, based on their Discord, the 1,100 members. They reckon there are maybe around 5,000 active individual wallet users in Korea.
Okay, 5,000. And that's specifically active users with their own wallets.
Yeah, specifically Bitcoin-only wallets, actively using them. So it suggests, a core group that's really engaged, not just dabbling or trading altcoins necessarily, a dedicated base that seems to be growing.
Interesting. Okay, Spectre, you mentioned their global perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And the Sydney community example was great, that idea of regular known meetups.
Yeah, very accessible.
But digging deeper, comparing Korea to other places they've seen, what were the main cultural differences that stood out? This is where it gets really interesting, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Spectre's observations on this were quite sharp. They mentioned Sydney, Australia, again, as impressive.
Right, the accessibility.
Exactly. The key thing was those regular, universally known meeting times and places. Like Spectre said, it's almost like Bitcoin mining rules everyone just knows.
Huh, okay. That's simple predictability.
Yeah, and that regularity, they argued, is huge for getting people involved, keeping them engaged. It makes it real tangible. A good lesson there.
So a culture of low barrier access, predictable connection. But the panel also got into something a bit more sensitive.
Yeah.
The idea that the Korean community can seem more toxic.
Right, that definitely came up.
Spectre apparently observed this, particularly around altcoins.
Mm.
Sharper reactions compared to, say, overseas communities where it's more, you do you, I'll do me.
Yeah, that was the contrast drawn. More acceptance elsewhere, maybe.
So why? Why that difference? Did they get into the reasons?
Atomic had a really compelling explanation, and honestly, quite sobering.
No.
They pointed out that historically, Korea has often been used as the exit window for a lot of altcoin projects.
Exit window, like for dumping tokens.
Exactly. Especially during the big bull runs like 2017, 2021, new coins would get listed, often on the big Korean exchanges like Upbit or Bithumb, and then they'd basically become dumping grounds for founders, early investors. Lots of ordinary Korean retail investors got burned, lost significant money, painfully.
Wow. Okay, so this isn't just theory, it's lived experience.
Very much so. Atomic explained that many of the staunchest Bitcoin advocates in Korea now are actually former victims of these schemes.
That makes sense.
They've seen the other side.
You've seen it, felt it. So their strong Bitcoin proponent stance isn't just ideology. It's driven by wanting to stop others from getting hurt the same way. They're speaking from, a place of pretty deep, often negative experience.
Which explains the generally negative view on alts they mentioned.
Absolutely. It connects directly.
Yeah.
Real-world market stuff, collective trauma almost, shaping the community's core beliefs and how they act. It's not just abstract philosophy. It's about real consequences.
And this experience, this stance, it must affect how the communities themselves operate, right? Like who gets in, what gets discussed.
Definitely. It directly influences membership rules, the whole ethos.
So how does that play out? Tell us more. Well, take Atomic's Jibun Junjang Discord again. Membership is open, remember, if you verify a wallet.
Right.
But crucially, they emphasize freedom of expression within the group. No censorship, no admin stepping in, even if people discuss altcoins. The idea is let people talk, learn, even disagree.
Okay, so more open forum style there. But what about Atomic Bitcoin? BSL, you said that was stricter.
Much stricter. They have this 7-person operations team, and they apparently really vet applicants. They look into your social media history, Discord ID, trying to gauge your background, your alignment.
And they have a specific policy on altcoins.
Yes, a very clear Bitcoin-only policy. They explicitly reject applicants who are also involved in altcoin stuff.
Wow, okay. So why such a hard line there? Why the gatekeeping?
The rationale given was pretty clear. BSL wants to maintain this pure, uncompromised, Bitcoin-only identity.
Protect the brand,
Yeah.
almost.
Sort of. They worry about negative associations. If members are also promoting alts, it could undermine BSL's efforts to promote Bitcoin, maybe confuse people.
Right.
It's about keeping the message focused, ensuring integrity, no perceived conflicts of interest.
It really does paint a picture of this duality, doesn't it?
Yeah.
A really tough, maybe even uncompromising exterior, especially towards anything seen as diluting the Bitcoin message.
Yeah, a protective shell.
But then underneath, a very welcoming, helpful core for people genuinely wanting to learn.
Exactly. That seemed to be the message.
And speaking of that toxic label, Spectre had an interesting take on why maximalists sometimes come across that way.
What was that?
They suggested that people who become Bitcoin maximalists often arrive there after trying lots of other investment paths, right? So they land on Bitcoin with this really deep conviction.
Okay, they feel that they found the answer.
Right. And they want to share that answer, maybe even give people the answer. But that strong conviction, when it meets resistance or what they perceive as ignorance.
It can turn aggressive. Yeah, I can see that.
And Atomic chimed in with personal stuff too, right? Baseless accusations.
Yeah, they shared experiences of being falsely accused. Things like getting paid by wallet companies or having links to that failed Haru Invest service. Just mudslinging, basically.
So how do they deal with that mentally?
Both of them kind of suggested a similar approach. You have to develop a thick skin and discipline. Ignore the groundless attacks. Focus your energy on people asking genuine questions who are actually curious.
Don't feed the trolls, essentially.
Pretty much. Atomic had this great phrase, strong, strong, soft, soft.
Okay.
Meaning, Bitcoiners might fiercely defend Bitcoin against what they see as threats or misinformation, strong, strong. But towards someone genuinely curious, asking for help, they'll be incredibly patient, super helpful, soft, soft, like spending hours helping a newbie set up a wallet or understand something complex.
That's a really insightful way to put it. Okay, so even within this passionate group, there must be disagreements, right? Internal debates.
Oh, for sure. They mentioned the big ones like ordinals, BRC20s, the op return debates.
Yeah, those are definitely hot topics. Fundamentally about how the blockchain should be used, what data belongs there.
Exactly. Big questions about network fees, Bitcoin's original purpose, stuff that really divides opinion even among hardcore Bitcoiners.
Which raises a key question, really. How does a community have these crucial, sometimes fiery, internal debates without tearing itself apart? How do you keep it constructive?
Spectre had some really solid advice on this, on being a healthy Bitcoiner during these debates.
What do they suggest?
And the main thing was, avoid personal attacks. Don't say things like, oh, you don't run a node, so you know nothing, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, ad hominem doesn't help.
Exactly. Instead, focus on using objective data. Use evidence you can verify. Make your case with facts. If your information is solid and presented rationally, Spectre argued, people will eventually be swayed. No need for aggression.
Focus on the substance, not the person.
Right. Focus on your own path. Run your node. Provide good info. Contribute positively. Don't waste energy trying to label or divide people. Build. Don't just criticize.
That's powerful. A call for intellectual honesty, respect, even when you strongly disagree. Okay, so bringing this all together, what's the path forward? How does the Korean Bitcoin community keep growing, keep spreading the word positively?
Well, Atomic Bitcoin, BSL, seems very focused on this proactive growth. It's interesting, they're deliberately an online, informal collective, not a formal legal entity.
Why is that?
The goal is simply to promote Bitcoin accurately, and they have this really transparent internal setup. They actually vote for leadership roles, like Atomic is currently an auditor, apparently.
Democratic structure.
Yeah, with annual elections, it really fosters that sense of community ownership. Feels quite Bitcoin-like in its structure.
That's cool. And funding, how do they manage that transparently?
Membership fees, basically. But they manage it using a 3-person multi-signature wallet.
Ah, multi-sig. So shared control, checks and balances.
Exactly. It ensures transparency, accountability with the community's funds, and their activities are super broad.
Like what?
Online education, offline education, running a decentralized mining pool.
A decentralized mining pool run by the community.
Yeah, allowing members to directly contribute to securing the network. Plus, organizing lectures, meetups, translating and publishing key Bitcoin videos and books. They even financially back other projects that they think benefit Bitcoin.
That mining pool part is fascinating. It's not just talk. It's building infrastructure, fostering self-sufficiency.
Right. It's a tangible way for members to participate, earn Bitcoin, secure the network. Really comprehensive approach.
Absolutely. And then Spectre had that call to action moving beyond just HOD line.
Yeah, that was powerful too. They really stressed. Saving Bitcoin is vital, yes. Financial sovereignty, long-term. But
Okay.
using it is just as crucial, especially for adoption and changing public perception. They encouraged everyone listening to actively look for places that accept Lightning payments and actually use it. Even for small things like coffee. Make direct payments.
Show, don't just tell.
Exactly. The goal is to visibly demonstrate Bitcoin isn't just some weird speculative asset locked away somewhere. It's practical. It's usable now.
And that visibility, they argued, sparks curiosity.
Yeah, Spectre believes it will naturally draw more interest, make Bitcoin less intimidating, and encourage people to actually learn more when they see it working in the real world. Paying for coffee with Bitcoin? That makes people ask questions in a way abstract debates just don't.
That makes a lot of sense. And there's a message here, I think, for everyone listening, right? Being into Bitcoin can sometimes feel a bit isolating.
Oh, definitely. Friends, family, they might not get it. They might even be dismissive.
Yeah.
And that's why both Spectre and Atomic really encouraged listeners, become active. Participate in changing your own environment.
Not by arguing, necessarily.
Not by forcing it on people. It's more about creating an environment through your own actions and participation where newcomers can just naturally see Bitcoin's value, its accuracy. Lead by example.
Be the change, as they say.
Pretty much. And they extended a clear invitation, too. If you want to get involved, if you want to volunteer or participate in these kinds of activities, reach out. They'll guide you. It's about collective effort, building that welcoming space.
Wow. What a fantastic deep dive into the Korean Bitcoin scene. We've seen the unique dynamics, the passion, the challenges they face with perception.
And their really active vision for the future.
Yeah, driven by real adoption. For me, what really stood out was that mix. You mentioned the deep conviction, sometimes born from really tough personal experiences, those altcoin losses.
Right.
But coupled with this genuine desire to help, to educate, to stop others falling into the same traps. It's almost like a tough love approach aimed at protecting and empowering people.
Yeah, I agree. And my big takeaway is just how much those real-world market events shape the culture. That toxic label, it's not just negativity for negativity's sake. It really comes from a protective place rooted in those past losses. And it just powerfully underlines how vital that critical thinking is, that focus on objective facts that Spectre talked about. It's essential for healthy debate, for healthy growth in any passionate community, really.
Keeps things constructive.
Exactly. Conviction is great, but when you temper it with reason and respect, that's when it becomes a real force for good.
Well said. So as you listening reflect on all this, on the future of Bitcoin, maybe in Korea, maybe globally, maybe think about your own role. What's one small, tangible step you could take, maybe even today, to help contribute to that growth, that understanding?
Yeah, something to mull over.
Definitely. Thank you all for joining us on this trip back to Bitcoin Seoul 2025. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.